All right, welcome back to the Beast Game Podcast. This is a review for Gangster. It's directed by Timothy Woodard. The writer is Ian Patrick Williams. It stars Sean Ferris and Milo Gibson. And the synopsis is a very high-level and brief history of how Machine Gun Jack McGurn rose from amateur boxer to second-in-command of Al Capone's criminal empire. So the movie starts off focusing on Jack McGurn's character. This is set during the Prohibition era. Actually, his real name is Vincent Garibaldi. He's Italian, but he wants to be a boxer, and he feels that people respect Irish boxers more than Italian boxers, so he changes his name to Jack McGurn. He's a mildly successful boxer, very family-oriented. He lives with his parents and also his brother. His father runs a small grocery, and he's selling alcohol out of there, which catches the attention of the Irish mob in Chicago. He's getting attacked by Irish gangs to make him stop selling alcohol. Jack wants to make more money for his family, and he starts running alcohol, and it just happens to be for Al Capone's boss, Johnny Torrio, and at this point, Al Capone is second in command. What happens is that he and Al Capone begin to strike up a friendship where Al Capone begins to trust him, and that's kind of where we'll stop. So a lot of this is kind of loosely based on history. So if you are familiar with the St. Valentine's Day massacre, McGurn is allegedly supposed to have a hand in that, where Al Capone and an Irish mobster named George Moran started having issues. So there's a setup. Some of Moran's people are taken to a building and just gunned down. Machine Gun Jack McGurn is allegedly supposed to be there, and the people were shot with a Tommy gun. So that's kind of somewhat how he gets his name. This is a direct-to-video movie. So the biggest problem with this movie is the directing, the screenplay, and the editing. It starts off well, but somewhere in the first third of the movie, it starts becoming very amateurish. So certain scenes just kind of hang on the camera a little longer than what it needs to be. There's a scene ending, the scene should end, and the camera's just hanging on a character just a little too long. There's some set dressing, so a lot of it is supposed to take place in Chicago, and it really feels like that, but there's a couple of scenes where you can tell that it just looks very low budget. Then some of the supporting actors aren't as good as they should be. So I will say that Milo Gibson and Sean Ferris, those are the best parts about this. Milo Gibson is Mel Gibson's son, but he does deliver a good performance, but it's wasted in this movie because the largest problem is the screenplay, that a lot of it just doesn't make sense. So you have Jack McGurn, one, family man boxer, two, getting to know a relationship with Al Capone, getting in line with Al Capone, wanting revenge on the Irish mob because of his father, and then his downfall. So what I just described is not necessarily how the movie plays out. And when the movie ended, I was like, hold on, why is the movie ending now? It seemed like there should have been something in between that. And I'm kind of familiar with Al Capone, Jack McGurn, the Prohibition era, St. Valentine's Day massacre. So there's a lot of stuff that is left out. One of the things that it really leaves out is why Al Capone turned on Jack McGurn. There's not really any explanation in the movie for why that happened, but as history shows, because Jack McGurn had brought so much attention to the mob and Al Capone, that he felt that he was a liability. But in the movie, it just says, hey, can you lay low for a while? Basically about it. In real life, he was public enemy number 4, public enemy number 1, Al Capone. But again, the movie doesn't touch on that. The main problem is the screenplay, how this movie plays out. He has a love interest, but she's just kind of very underdeveloped. The relationship that he has with the police, because he actually starts out boxing in a police gym, doesn't really flesh itself out. So other than the police that kind of helped him be a boxer, see him hanging with Al Capone, and there's really not any resolution there. His family drops out really in the first third of the movie. They don't exist any longer. I wanted to like this movie more than I did. I wish this movie could have been better. I like a lot of crime drama movies. again, it's an independent, moderate budget movie, but it just doesn't do anything for me. I mean, again, Milo Gibson and Sean Ferris are the best things about this, but everything surrounding that is not as good as it should be. They can't carry the movie just because of the way that the movie is structured, where there's bits and pieces just taken out completely, and it doesn't make sense when you watch the movie. So it's just editing and the script. There's big chunks of this in history just cut out, but the way that is edited doesn't make sense because there's lapses that something should explain what this character is doing, this character's motivations, and you don't see that. So this movie's going to get a 4 based off of those issues. That's the Beast Gang Podcast. You can find more of our podcasts at beastgang.com, iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, TuneIn, iHeartRadio, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube.